What happens when the person at the very top, the one with all the power, the corner office, and the authority to make or break careers, crosses the line? Most people would stay silent, too afraid to risk their future. But what if someone, a young intern on her very first day, decided to do the unthinkable? What if she turned the tables and exposed the truth in front of the entire world? This is not just a story about harassment in the workplace. It's about courage, accountability, and the ripple effect of one bold decision. A story that asks us, in the face of abuse of power, will we stay silent or will we speak up? Today, you're going to hear a story that shook an entire company, sent a CEO crashing down, and ignited a movement for women everywhere. But more than that, you're going to discover the lesson buried inside it. A lesson about courage, justice, and the power of standing up when it matters most. Because sometimes the smallest voice in the room can become the loudest echo in society. The glass doors slid open with a soft whoosh. For many, it was just another Monday morning in the city. But for Amira Johnson, it was the beginning of what she believed would be the most important chapter of her young career. She stood in front of the towering skyscraper, 48 floors of steel and ambition, housing one of the most prestigious firms in the country. The company was known for handling billion-dollar deals, advising governments, and shaping the future of industries. And today, at just 23 years old, Amira was stepping inside as a brand new intern. Her heart raced, not just from the nerves, but from the years of sacrifice that had brought her here. She was the first in her family to graduate from college. The daughter of a single mother who worked double shifts at a diner, Amira had grown up hearing people tell her that the corporate world was not built for girls like her. But she refused to accept that. She studied harder, applied to countless programs, and finally landed the one internship that could change everything. The lobby felt like another world. Marble floors gleaming under morning light, employees in sharp suits moving briskly, their ID badges swinging with purpose. Amira clutched her notebook to her chest and whispered to herself, "You belong here. You work for this. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." As she approached the receptionist, she introduced herself with a nervous smile. "Good morning, I'm Amira Johnson. Today's my first day as an intern." The receptionist, accustomed to new faces, gave her a warm nod. "Welcome, Amira. You'll be reporting directly to the CEO's office. Quite an honor. He doesn't usually take interns under his wing." Amira's eyes widened slightly. The CEO? She had expected to work in a department, shadowing a manager or sitting quietly in meetings. But being placed under the CEO himself? That was unheard of. A wave of pride rushed through her. Maybe this was her moment. Maybe this was the opportunity to prove herself in ways she had only dreamed of. Elevator doors opened with a chime, and she stepped inside, pressing the button for the top floor. As the numbers climbed, 15, 27, 39, her mind filled with excitement. She thought of her mother, who had hugged her that morning, whispering, "Make us proud, baby, but more than anything, stay true to yourself." Finally, the doors opened to a quiet, lavish hallway lined with framed awards and photographs of the company's milestones. This was where decisions were made that shaped the world. And at the very end of the hallway, behind a set of glass doors, was the office of the man she had only read about in business magazines, the CEO. She walked in, greeted by an assistant who looked her up and down before saying, "He's expecting you." Taking a deep breath, Amira stepped into the CEO's office. The room was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. The desk was spotless, the shelves filled with trophies and books on leadership. Behind the desk sat a man in his mid-50s, sharp suit, confident smile, the kind of presence that demanded respect without a word. "Ah, Amira," he said warmly, standing to shake her hand. "Welcome to the firm. You've got quite the resume for someone so young. I like ambition." Amira smiled nervously, but with gratitude. "Thank you, sir. I'm honored to be here." In that moment, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. She had no idea that within days, the same office that symbolized success and opportunity would turn into the stage of her greatest test of courage. Because sometimes, the doors we walk through with hope are the very ones that challenge us in ways we never imagined. At first, everything seemed perfect. The CEO, Richard Hale, was a man known in the media as the deal maker, charismatic, articulate, and seemingly supportive of young talent. He had built a reputation as the face of the firm. To Amira, being chosen to work so closely with him felt like a golden ticket to success. During her first few days, Richard appeared encouraging. He would ask her to sit in on meetings, explain how major deals were structured, and even compliment her insights when she spoke up. For Amira, it felt surreal. Here she was, an intern barely out of college, having lunch in the executive dining hall, listening to conversations about billion-dollar mergers. But soon, subtle shifts began to happen. At first, it was harmless remarks. "You're much smarter than most interns I've had," he'd say, his eyes lingering a second too long. Or, "You've got confidence that's rare, especially in someone so young and attractive." Amira brushed it off. She told herself it was nothing, just a powerful man being overly friendly. She reminded herself to stay professional, to keep her head down and not misinterpret anything. But Richard was testing boundaries. By the second week, he began asking her to stay late after everyone else had gone home. "You'll learn more this way," he insisted. One evening, while reviewing documents with her, he leaned back in his chair and said, almost casually, "You know, Amira, people would kill for the kind of access you have to me. Careers are made here in this office, and I can open doors for you that you can't even imagine." The unspoken implication hung heavy in the room. Amira shifted uncomfortably in her seat, offering only a polite smile. Soon, his behavior escalated. He started sending her personal text messages late at night, compliment about her appearance, invitations to private dinners under the guise of mentorship. One text read, "You're too stunning to just be behind a desk. You should be by my side, always." Amira felt her stomach, not each time her phone buzzed. She tried to deflect, responding politely but firmly, keeping every reply professional. But Richard was relentless. The turning point came one Friday evening. The office was nearly empty, the city lights glowing outside the towering windows. Richard called her into his office under the pretense of reviewing a presentation. As she stood by his desk, explaining her slides, he suddenly moved closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You know, Amira," he said in a low voice, "I see a lot of potential in you, but potential can be wasted unless it's nurtured properly. Stick close to me, and I'll make sure you rise faster than anyone else here." Amira froze. She could feel the weight of his hand, the power in his words, the trap being set. In that instant, she understood. This wasn't about mentorship or opportunity. This was about control. He wasn't just her boss. He was a predator using his position to corner her. Her mind raced. Should she pull away? Should she confront him? Or stay silent and endure it for the sake of her career? 1,000 fears flooded her thoughts. The fear of losing the internship, of being blacklisted in the industry, of being labeled difficult. But something inside her, something her mother had instilled in her, refused to let her shrink back. She straightened her posture, gently removed his hand from her shoulder, and said firmly, "Sir, I'm here to learn and to work hard. Nothing more. I respect this company, but I also respect myself." For a moment, silence filled the room. Richard's smile faltered, his eyes narrowing. Then, with a forced chuckle, he leaned back. Of course. You're a professional. I like that." But Amira could see it, the irritation behind his mask, the warning in his gaze. He wasn't done. And she knew this was only the beginning. Because when powerful men feel rejected, they don't always retreat. They push harder. And Amira was about to find out just how far Richard Hale was willing to go. By Monday morning, Amira walked into the office with a heavy weight pressing down on her chest. The weekend had given her time to think, but the memory of Richard's hand on her shoulder replayed like a haunting loop. She could still hear his words. "Stick close to me, and I'll make sure you rise faster than anyone else here." At first, she considered quitting. The thought of facing him again, of enduring more subtle threats disguised as mentorship, made her sick. But then she remembered her mother's words. Stay true to yourself. Quitting might protect her peace, but it would also mean surrendering to the very system that thrived on silence. That morning, as she prepared for work, she made a decision. She wasn't going to run. She was going to protect herself. And if Richard crossed the line again, she would have proof. So she tucked a small voice recorder into the lining of her blazer pocket. Her phone was always with her, too, ready if she needed it. She felt nervous, almost paranoid, but a quiet determination replaced her fear. Sure enough, Richard wasted no time. By midweek, he began calling her into his office again after hours. The pattern was predictable now. The building quiet, the staff mostly gone, the skyline glowing outside his windows. It was a perfect setting for him. Privacy, no witnesses, no accountability. But this time, Amira was ready. Close the door behind you, Richard said smoothly as she stepped into his office. His tone carried the same casual authority, but his eyes told another story. Sharp, calculating, testing her resolve. As the door clicked shut, Amira's hand brushed against her blazer pocket, ensuring the recorder was on. Richard leaned against his desk, arms crossed. Amira, you've been doing excellent work. Honestly, you've impressed me more than some of my senior associates. He paused, letting his words hang in the air before adding, but talent alone isn't enough to climb in this world. You need allies, and I could be your strongest ally. Amira forced a polite smile. I appreciate your confidence in me, sir. Richard circled around her slowly, like a predator sizing up its prey. His voice lowered. Let's not pretend we don't both know what I'm talking about. You're smart, you're beautiful, and you have a fire I admire. But to truly succeed here, you need to show loyalty. To me. Her heart raced, but she kept her expression calm. Inside her pocket, the recorder captured every word. Then his hand reached out again, this time toward her arm. I could take you places. Amira, dinners, trips, real deals. You'd be at my side, not just as an intern, but as someone special. Amira took a subtle step back. Sir, with respect, my work should speak for itself. He smirked, shaking his head. Work alone doesn't get you to the top. Connections do. And right now, I'm offering you a connection no one else in this building will ever have. Silence. The only sound was a faint hum of the city below. For the first time, Amira locked eyes with him. Not as a nervous intern, but as a woman refusing to bow to intimidation. If that's what it takes to succeed here, then maybe this isn't the place for me. His expression hardened. For a flicker of a moment, his mask slipped, revealing anger. Careful, Amira. Opportunities like this don't come twice. And people who turn them down, they don't last long in this business. The threat was clear, sharp as a blade. But what Richard didn't know was that his words, dripping with entitlement and coercion, were being preserved. Every syllable, every pause. Amira left his office that night with her hands trembling, but her spirit unbroken. She walked out into the cool night air, clutching her phone and recorder like shields. She had the evidence, the truth, and though she didn't yet know how far this would go, one thing was certain. Richard Hale's power over her had just begun to crumble, because courage is not the absence of fear, it's acting in spite of it. And Amira had just taken her first step toward turning the tables. Amira barely slept that night. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, the tiny recorder resting on her bedside table, like a loaded weapon. The weight of what she carried was overwhelming. Proof, undeniable evidence of the CEO's abuse of power. But with that proof came questions that gnawed at her. What if no one believes me? What if they accuse me of fabricating it? What if this ruins my career before it even begins? By morning, she made her decision. Silence was no longer an option. She uploaded the audio to a secure folder, trimmed the section where Richard's words dripped with coercion, and with trembling fingers shared it anonymously online. She didn't expect what came next. Within hours, the clip exploded. It spread across social media platforms like wildfire, posted and reposted under hashtags like #VoicesAtWork and #StandWithAmira. Though she had not attached her name, people quickly pieced together the context. This was coming from inside one of the most powerful firms in the country. By the next day, the recording was headline news. Journalists dissected every line. Activists rallied online, calling for accountability. Women from across industries shared their own experiences of harassment, echoing a collective frustration that had long been silenced. Inside the firm, chaos erupted. Employees whispered in hallways. HR scrambled for answers, and board members convened emergency meetings. The pressure mounted quickly. Investors demanded explanations. Clients threatened to pull their business. Richard Hale, once untouchable, suddenly found himself cornered. At first, he denied everything, dismissing the recording as out of context. But the evidence was too clear. Every pause, every manipulative suggestion, every threat, it was all there, impossible to spin. By the end of the week, the board had no choice. Richard Hale was terminated, effective immediately, his decades-long career collapsing in a matter of days. The man who once sat at the top of the skyscraper, looking down on the city like a king, was now forced to walk out with his head lowered. And as the world watched his downfall, something unexpected happened. Amira, though still anonymous, was praised as the voice that sparked change. Colleagues began reaching out quietly. Some women confessing they had endured similar encounters but had never dared to speak. Her inbox flooded with messages from strangers across the globe. "Thank you for being brave. You've given us hope. Because of you, I feel like I can finally tell my story." Eventually, Amira chose to step forward publicly. She revealed her identity not to seek fame, but to take control of her narrative. Standing at a press conference, her voice steady despite her nerves, she said, "I didn't speak up just for myself. I spoke up for every woman who's ever been told to stay silent, for every young professional who felt like they had no choice but to endure abuse to keep their job. No career is worth your dignity. No paycheck is worth your silence." Her words resonated far beyond that room. Soon, universities invited her to speak about workplace ethics. Advocacy groups partnered with her to push for stronger protections against harassment. She became a symbol, not of victimhood, but of courage. The intern who once walked nervously into a skyscraper now stood as a leader, a voice for women in workplaces everywhere. And while the scars of that experience never fully disappeared, they became the foundation of her mission. Amira proved that even the smallest voice can echo louder than the most powerful title. Because courage, when amplified, doesn't just change one life, it changes systems. Amira's story is not just about one CEO or one office or one intern. It is about something bigger, the imbalance of power that exists everywhere. It's about the unspoken fear that silences too many people and the incredible courage it takes for just one person to say, "Enough." When Amira pressed that button on her recorder, she wasn't just protecting herself. She was taking a stand for every woman who had ever been cornered by power, manipulated by fear, or pressured into silence. Her decision cost her comfort. It risked her career, and it put her under the spotlight of the entire world. But what did she gain? She gained her voice. She gained her dignity. And in doing so, she gave millions of others the courage to find theirs too. This is the lesson we cannot ignore. Courage doesn't mean you are fearless. It means you act despite fear. Power can intimidate, but truth, when spoken boldly, has the ability to dismantle even the strongest walls. And silence may protect us in the moment, but it is courage that protects generations to come. For every Amira in the world, there are countless others still waiting to be heard. They are in our offices, our schools, our communities, watching, hesitating, wondering if it's worth the risk to speak. And the truth is, they can't always do it alone. They need allies. They need us. Because real change doesn't happen when one person is exposed. It happens when a culture is transformed. When organizations stop protecting predators and start protecting people. When we stop rewarding silence and start honoring those who speak truth to power. Amira started as an intern, someone with the least amount of authority in the room. Yet, her voice became louder than the CEOs, louder than the boards, louder than the silence of decades of complicity. That is the power of courage. So here's the question we must all ask ourselves. When we are faced with injustice, whether in the workplace, in relationships, or in society. Will we stay quiet to protect ourselves, or will we speak up to protect others? Because sometimes the bravest thing we can do is press record. Sometimes it's standing tall in the face of intimidation. And sometimes it's simply saying, I respect myself enough to walk away. Remember this: titles fade, power shifts, but courage echoes. And one voice, spoken with truth, can change the course of history.